We're discussing Manchester United, the fallout after the Sir Alex Ferguson era, the problems that Manchester United have had since, and where it all began. So what is the genesis of the problem? It's often suggested that it all started with the dual departure of Sir Alex Ferguson and David Gill in 2013. But when they left a squad that was ageing or retiring, or heading that way. Giggs was 39 when they won the title in 2013. Scholes was 38, Ferdinand was 33, and Vidic was over 30. His knee was already going. Wayne Rooney had already fallen out with Sir Alex, actually, warning that the problems were coming down the track. He looked at the younger players. He wasn't sure that they were up for it. So who is to blame, Mark, for not preparing a better transition from that most successful of eras, when I'm sure as a Manchester United fan you thought this was going to go on forever? Is it the Glazers? Is it Gill? Is it Woodward? Is it Ferguson? Is it other directors? Or is it all of the above?
I think it's a great point to highlight how ageing that team was. But I think Manchester United probably were caught short by how quickly Sir Alex Ferguson retired. I think even he would admit that was quite a quick decision. I certainly also think if Sir Alex Ferguson had stayed for another year, which is what people like Robin van Persie were expecting, or another year or two, we still would have kept winning titles. Such was the genius of the man. I think I would put the blame at the Glazers' door. I think that when you look at Sir Alex Ferguson, you know, if you to use an analogy, if you take a wand from Harry Potter, he's not magic. And if you take Sir Alex Ferguson out of Manchester United, he was a genius. Like, he would have, I think Alan Hansen said it, you give him any of the top four and he'll win the league. So it was always going to be an issue. But I think there was warning signs way before Ed Woodward came in, who I would also put some blame for the last 9 years involved with Manchester United, in the sense that I saw something today about it as well. United don't want to overpay, and they feel that they can get more out of the current squad, which we'll talk about later. But I think that Sir Alex Ferguson also won titles with issues that the Glazers have carried on since he's left, and managers have not been able to deal with. Gary Neville's the best right back we've had at Manchester United in my lifetime. I can't really think of many right backs that are anywhere near that level. Where Manchester United, we should be able to reel off 3 or 4 in 30 years. We have neglected that squad because we've got owners who've kept us in debt. We have spent £1 billion in the last 10 years, but we probably could have spent 2 with the money that we have. It has been spent badly, but I just think we've become a brand and not a football club. And ultimately that will sink you when you've got clubs like Manchester City, Newcastle now, Liverpool to a certain extent, who actually just want to succeed on the pitch. But without a question, Sir Alex Ferguson was always going to be an impossible task to follow. But the mistakes after that are endless. But I ultimately think the Glazers are responsible for why Manchester United are where they are. It starts at the top.
And Mark says that, you know, it was a little bit of a surprise in that everybody thought that Sir Alex was going to go on for another year after 2013. Robin van Persie, who had been signed the previous summer from Arsenal, certainly believed that. But ultimately, Sir Alex Ferguson was in his 70s at that point. It wasn't a secret that he was coming to the end of his career. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. When you get into the early part of your 8th decade, you're not going to be continuing full-time work on a high-pressure environment for much longer, are you? So they should have been thinking about a transition.
They should have been thinking about it. I think the owners of Manchester United, the Glazers, where a lot of fingers are pointed, and rightly so, Sam. The transition should have been a lot smoother. I believe that Sir Alex Ferguson was involved in David Moyes coming to Manchester United.
Well, he invited him round his house. He called him up whilst David was out buying a watch strap for his missus and said to him, "Can you come round the house, please?" Half an hour later, he was telling him he was going to be the new Manchester United manager.
Yeah, and then the speculation started. He walked through the door and then he looked at the squad that he had. And as we've just been mentioning before, it was an aging squad. So David Moyes had time to change that, and he had time to bring in the players that he wanted to bring into Manchester United.
But he didn't. And there was a reason for that. The reason he didn't have time to bring anybody in, Mark, was because they'd only won the league just in that period. And they probably only won it because Manchester City had really taken their foot off the gas during that year. And when Moyes took over, he was actually hamstrung by a couple of things. Firstly, he thought that Rennie Mullenstein was going to stay as part of the coaching squad, and that didn't actually happen. But also, they didn't let him start until July the 1st that year, right? Because basically, and it seems ludicrous now, if they'd done so, they would have had to pay compensation to Everton for a month or so's work that he would undertake at Old Trafford, and it would have cost them money. And actually, I suppose that sets the tone for the post-Ferguson era, doesn't it?
Well, it's like doing your Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve, isn't it? You know, there's not a lot left. I think Mourinho, Ancelotti, these were the coaches that you replaced Sir Alex Ferguson with. It's like we just said, it's mission impossible. You've got to bring somebody in who knows what they're doing. I think some people blame Sir Alex for bringing David Moyes in, but it was probably the best choice available at such a late stage. And I think that David Moyes was never... I never wanted David Moyes to be our manager. I was very concerned about it. And I think a lot of United fans were. But Manchester United fans will back somebody. They will give them their support. And I think David Moyes came in, David Gill had gone, and I think he got lost in the club. He made a lot of structural changes that he shouldn't have done. There was all those rumours about players like Nemanja Vidic and Rio Ferdinand being told to study videos of Phil Jagielka. And I think
that's an urban myth, though, isn't it? As far as I understand it, that didn't happen. It's one of those stories that came out, but it isn't true.
Yeah, well, that may be, but the reality is he was swallowed up by that football club. He was never the right choice for it. And ultimately, David Moyes has gone on to show what his level is. He's never going to manage a Liverpool or a Manchester United or a Manchester City. But you give him an Everton or a West Ham and he can work wonders. I think Manchester United ended up in a situation with David Moyes that they realised they needed to get out with quite quick. But then still the problems persisted. I'm personally not massively a fan of singling out David Moyes or Louis van Gaal or Jose Mourinho or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. All right, every one of them deserved the sack, but ultimately it comes down to the structural position at Manchester United and the ownership, and their lack of football knowledge in how to run a club like this has been compounded time and time again.
It's so frustrating, Mark, isn't it? Because if you and I sit here and we can see that there's not enough football expertise or wasn't enough football expertise, that may well have changed now and they may well be trying to put those wrongs right. But if we could have seen that in 2013, it beggars belief that they couldn't. Is it because they thought that forever they would be in the Champions League places? Forever there may well be, coming down the line, the European Super League, where they wouldn't need to be as competitive as some of the other teams in the country. They're certainly going to have to do that now because sticking plasters won't get them back into the Champions League in the immediate future. There's no doubt about that. Let's go to Old Trafford and go outside the stadium and speak to Hugh Wozencroft, who can explore some of the genesis of the problems with the supporters outside the stadium tonight.
Hi, Sam. Well, I just wanted to discuss what you guys were referring to there, some of those big changes that happened back in 2013 when David Moyes was basically handpicked by Sir Alex Ferguson. I agree with you. A lot of people do think that was the start of the problems for Manchester United. You know, I feel that an organisation that was built on the vision, really, the energy of a single individual in Sir Alex Ferguson was always going to have issues when that individual left. I think one of the issues that Manchester United have had since is they tried to replicate that, obviously, by bringing in David Moyes. And I think they've always been looking for that singular figure who is going to take them back to glory. That's why I feel slightly put off by some of the reaction to Erik ten Hag coming in, as if he is single-handedly going to save Manchester United, especially when you look at some of the modernisations, the way in which the other big clubs in the Premier League have sort of pushed the envelope over the past, 5 years. Manchester United are behind in so many areas. We know they are making changes away from the football side of things, if you know what I mean. Upstairs, of course, there is going to be a change. You know, Ed Woodward is leaving the club. But like I said to you a little bit earlier, is this going to be a club founded on a single individual's viewpoint? Because they tried that with David Moyes, who, by the way, did all the things that Erik ten Hag did when he came in for his first press conference, and he shook everyone's hand and he was going around the club and he was meeting everyone, and everyone said this is the right sort of character to be taking over at Manchester United. But what happened when it got to the football side of things? David Moyes wasn't supported. I think he feels very strongly that the club could have done more for him, particularly in that first transfer window with big name signings, and even agreeing, for example, a move for Tony Kroos, and then being sacked and Kroos deciding not to join at Manchester United but to go to Real Madrid instead. Those were the sorts of things that he felt, had they gone in his favour, it could have been a very, very different story. I just wonder, with the amount of changes that Erik ten Hag has to make and the amount of new faces at Manchester United in terms of the director of football and the chief executive, all of these people getting to know one another, all of them in new roles, trying to be amongst the elite, trying to rub shoulders with the best clubs in English football, in world football, how many years it will take for that to reap rewards. And I think that is what a lot of these fans, who, by the way, are all running to a gig at Victoria Warehouse and won't stop to chat to me, are thinking about Manchester United at the moment. I'm trying my best, Sam. I honestly am, I promise you.